Hello and welcome or welcome back. It's time to share what I've been reading. I have been reading quite a bit and I've gotten through 3 books since the last time I checked in with you guys, and so I wanted to talk to you about them. I'm going to tell you right now, one of these books was just okay. One of these books was a major disappointment, and one of these books I loved. And yeah, I was surprised by the outcome of all of these. So see if you can guess which one was which. I read The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I still cannot remember the title of this book correctly. I also read Blind Love by Wilkie Collins, and I read a new to me author and book, which is What We Tried to Bury Grows Here. So I'm going to talk about them in the order of which I read them, starting with The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. You'd think I would know that by now, since the book is literally about how they're taking the long way to get to a small angry planet. Like that's literally the journey they're on. Anyway, let me tell you what this book is about. This is written by Becky Chambers, which I feel like a lot of people know by now, especially if they watch any booktubers that read sci-fi. This is typically talked about as being a cozy sci-fi, and it is definitely set in space on a spaceship. And in it, we are following the crew of the ship Wayfarer, and they are a crew who their job in this universe is to drill wormholes to basically provide highways for individuals to travel, or at least for, sort of construction delivery units to go through and to take larger hauls of either people or things from one place to another. And they build and dig these wormholes to create this short way to get from point A to point B, if you will. But they are able to get a great assignment that is going to pay them lots of money, but will require them to take the long way to get from point A to point B, if you will. And that's all explained in the book. I would say that I would consider this to be soft sci-fi in terms of some of the stuff in the book that is scientific and has to do with technology and wormholes and all of that jazz is explained, but it's explained in a very accessible manner. It's not getting too deep into the weeds, and at the end of the day, the message is like, we're putting this in here, but it's okay if you don't get it, and we're also going to give you an analogy that might make it simpler to understand. So if you like sci-fi but maybe don't want it to get too heavy on the scientific terms, I feel like this is a good combination. I would compare it to maybe Project Hail Mary in terms of like the level of scientific information you're going to get and go through. Now, what is this book actually about? I would say at the end of the day, you'll hear a lot of people say it's about found family, and I think that is in there, but I would say even more than that, it's really about the journey that we as people can go on, and it's about the relationships, and the friends you make along the way, which I guess does bring it back to found family, but it's almost cliche about the friends you make along the way, because they're literally on a journey and they're making friends, a la like Lord of the Rings style, but the stakes are way lower. Like, nobody's getting destroyed if they don't make this journey. And that was very intentional on Becky Chambers' part. She wanted to make a lower stakes book, something that was, I don't know if I would say cozy, because when I think cozy, I think like warm and fuzzy and cuddle up in a blanket and drink, warm drinks and just feel good about life. There are some harsh and heavier topics in here that come up. You do get a lot into the idea of like culture and races and species and the biases that people can have towards one another, and that can definitely get unfriendly at times. While a lot of the events that happen in the book are pretty light, there are a couple of heavier moments as well, so I guess it just depends on what you think when you think of cozy, but I would say this isn't totally that for me. But it was a lower stakes book in a lot of ways. And even the one sort of high stake adventure aspect of this book was definitely not the focus of this book. Now, my understanding of what Becky Chambers attempted to do was she wanted to write a book that was less about the plot and more about the characters. And I have to say that I think she did that fairly well. I do feel like this book is way more character focused than it is plot focused. But I feel like what unintentionally happened was she took like your typical trope of an adventure sci-fi novel and almost and maybe really intentionally took all the like drama and risk out of that, to the point where I think the goal was to turn all of that upside down on its head and make it less important. But instead, it at times made the book to me feel like, well, what is actually the point? And I know the point was supposed to be the characters and the family and the friendships and relationships, but on the back of the book, Rosemary Harper, who's one of the members of the crew, like her story is talked about a lot, but in the book itself, she really kind of feels like a side character, and so I was a little thrown off by that. We get a little bit of her perspective and a bit, we definitely get her backstory and like why she's on the ship and, how she has joined this crew, but I would not say that she was necessarily the center of the story or the central character. It really is a multi POV. She is one of the central characters in terms of we get a lot of her perspective, or at least some of her perspective compared to others. But there's also the captain of the ship, Ashby, who we get quite a bit of his storyline going. We get another crew member's storyline as well, and those are probably the three central characters that we truly get to know. And then I found surprisingly that the rest of the crew kind of stayed a bit in the background, and two of the crew members I felt like we actually never really got to know at all, and never truly got to understand their motivations or meaning in life or what their drama was. And I don't know, it's hard for me to say that I felt like this book went wrong somewhere, but I do feel like at the end of reading it, I felt unsatisfied. I felt like the themes hadn't been explored in a way that there was any particular message for me to take away from them. It wasn't an adventure story, but I also didn't feel like I got enough characterization out of even one person to really truly feel connected to them. I feel like at the most sort of risky, tense moments in the book, there was tension, but then a lot of those tense things very quickly became unimportant again because they weren't really the point of the book at all. And I don't know. I wanted to like this a lot more than I did, I guess is what I'm saying. I did still end up giving it 4 stars. I would recommend it, but I think at the end of the day, it just wasn't like the I don't know. It just wasn't what I was hoping it was going to be, sadly enough. I wasn't disappointed in it, but it was just okay. And yeah, I would recommend this to somebody who's been wanting to try Becky Chambers. I will say personally, I thought the shorter novella read by her, To Be Taught If Fortunate, was a better book. That's also set in space, that also has a crew, all of those things. I thought the relationships were much deeper and more meaningful there. I really felt like there was a strong message for me to walk away with, and yeah, she touches on some of the same themes in this book and for a longer period of time, but I don't feel like I got as much out of it. But if you did like To Be Taught If Fortunate, you might like this story as well. If you liked this story, I definitely recommend trying To Be Taught If Fortunate because I honestly think it's the better of the two books. Sadly, I will not be carrying on in this series. There just wasn't enough in it that gripped me, that made me want to keep going. I'm not a huge series reader anyway. I have heard that the series as it continues isn't necessarily one where you have to read them close together because all the characters carry over and that kind of thing. So maybe at some point I'll come back to it, but as of right now, I don't own any of the other books in the Wayfarer series, and I have no plans to buy them anytime soon, though I will try another Becky Chambers at some point. I think I'm going to go to the Monk and Robot series and give that a try. At first, I didn't think I was going to, but the more I sit with it, the more I realize that maybe I do want to give that a chance because I really do like the discussions that she has about like ethics surrounding like biology and humans and what it means to be humans and what it means to be sapient and what it means to be alive. Like those are discussions I like in general, and I think she handles them really well. I have heard that the Monk and Robot series is quite a bit more philosophical in nature and that she gets into those topics in a lot more depth. And so we'll see if that does it better for me. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this book. I will say that typically I only held on to 5-star reads. So is this being unhauled? Maybe. But I'm gonna wait and see how I feel about other things by Becky Chambers before passing this on to someone else. But yeah, I really wish I had like stronger feelings about that book, but I really don't. But I guess I also don't have like super negative feelings about it either, so that's a good thing. The next book I read is Blind Love by Wilkie Collins. And guys, this is the disappointment. This book is probably going to be the most disappointing book I will read all year. At least I hope it's the book that disappoints me the most, because gosh, I don't even want to know what could disappoint me more than this book. So let me tell you my thoughts on this book. They're very mixed, and I'm going to tell you right now, I still don't really know what I want to rate this book. Blind Love. This is by Wilkie Collins, an author who usually works really well for me. I like the way he plots and paces his books. I like his writing. All the things tend to come together. And for the most part, that happened in this book. This is about Iris Henley, who is living with her father, and she has reached the age where she would love nothing better than to marry Lord Harry Norland. The problem is he's kind of a rogue, vagabond, scampy, not great reputation kind of guy. And while he comes from a wealthy family, he's known for just letting the money slip through his fingers. And so everybody has basically warned her against him, has told her he's not a good guy, it's not going to work out, you're going to be miserable if you are with this guy, stay away. In the meantime, she has a lifelong friend who would love nothing better than to be her husband. So we've got a great love triangle set up from the start. It is adventurous. There is a prologue to this book that grips you and pulls you straight into the story. And by the end of the prologue, I forgot it was the prologue, and I was like, oh wait, we haven't even begun the story. And that was in a good and great way. The story carries on. You follow Iris as she tries to avoid Lord Harry, but finds herself continuing to come across his path. Whether or not that's intentional or not remains to be seen. And yeah, she struggles with what is the right choice for her, what is the right choice for them, and what should she do. And at the end of the day, we just end up exploring how she is just blindly in love with this man. She has hopes that he will repent of all the wrongs that he has done, he will turn over a new leaf, and he will become a guy that is worthy of her. And the story goes on from there, and it's told really well. The plotting is fun. It has lots of nice twists and turns. There are exciting moments. There is some great writing in here, and there is a crap ton of misogyny. This is the most Victorian male dominant book I have read in a while, and I'm so frustrated that it's by an author that I really like. And the Victorians had a very different idea of male and female relationships, and completely different ideas than we do today about like how women work and what women are like. And the narrator of this book just had to make sure that he mansplained to you how women operate and how they work and what their mindset is. And that wasn't it. Like I could have maybe gotten over that, but it was just like page after page, every other moment, about these poor women and how awful things were. And I don't know, typically Wilkie Collins, who didn't really buy into the Victorian like manosphere, was sold out to it in this book and couldn't stop writing about, women, they do this and this is what they're like. And I don't know, it was just awful. There's even one point in the book where it basically literally says, oh, now they were going to be okay because the women finally had a man to help them. I was annoyed, y'all. I'm not going to deny it. Like, there were a couple of times where I was like, I'm done, and almost put this book down or threw it. And honestly, the only reason I didn't is because I am really interested in reading a lot of Wilkie Collins' work. I want to see the progression of him as an author as a whole. I think he does a lot of very interesting things as a Victorian author. And so at the end of the day, it just ended up having to be an author study for me rather. And that was the only reason I made it through this book, because otherwise I was out. I was done. I was over it. I couldn't handle it anymore. Despite that, I did finish the book, and guys, this truly is a painful one for me. Like, I can't ignore all the things that he said about women in this book, and the way women were treated, and the narration surrounding the women, and the on and on and on and on and on. at the same time, I can't ignore that if it wasn't for that, like if I could just take a black Sharpie and redact those moments in the book, this would probably be my favorite Wilkie Collins. Like, I think it's really well written, really well plotted, and all of that. But like, I can't say that at the at the sake of like what we know about women. So, what do I make of this book at the end of the day? Like, this would be a book that would be great to read as part of gender studies, and looking at, like, how did the Victorians view women? Like, what were they taught about them? What did they truly believe about how women worked? Because honestly, like, this is a guy that is caught in his time in truly thinks that this is how women work and this is just what women are like and that this is what's best for women, and is completely oblivious to how the society he is in has shaped women to be helpless, and not that they're just naturally helpless. So I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to rate it. I think I gave it a rating on the story graph. I don't even know what rating I gave it. I may even have to go back and change it and lower it, most likely. But I don't even know that I could recommend that book. Like, if you want to read everything that Wilkie Collins has ever read, like, go ahead. If you don't mind hearing about, how women are, madly in love with people and can't get over it because that's just how their brains work, there's that. But in terms of like being able to read it and just ignore all of that, you're not going to be able to. It's on like every few pages at length, and it's just such a letdown, to be honest. Surprising? Not for the Victorian author. Surprising for Wilkie Collins? Yeah, I have to be honest, it was. And honestly, I had a couple of people mention like, oh, I've never heard of this one. And I even have it in a really old edition that I bought used. And I can see why it's not wildly in print. Moving on. The book that surprised me, that I absolutely loved and was blown away by, is What We Tried to Bury Grows Here. Now, this is a book that got on my TBR because I think when I played my TBR game, I got something like a new release. And so I bought it because it was newly released in paperback. And I was blown away by this book. Blown away by the book, the story, the construction of it. It is a debut novel by an author who has written quite a few like shorter works and articles and essays and all that kind of thing. But this is his debut novel, and I'm impressed. That's all I can say. So what is this book about? This is a story of a young man named Isidro who, during the Spanish Civil War set in 1936, he leaves his home village, his family, and he decides to join the war. And we follow Isidro through the voice of everyone but Isidro himself. It is so fascinating the way this book is put together, and I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, and it took me a couple of chapters to figure it out, but once I figured it out, I was sold. It is basically a set of interconnected short stories. Every chapter is a different person who is in some way involved in the war. I mean, they're all surrounded by it. They're all living in Spain, and they're all caught up in what is happening in their country. And my battery is going to die, so let me hurry this up. And every single one of these people has their own chapter that tells about their lives, their experience, and their chance encounter with Isidro. And you meet a variety of different people. It says on the back, from a conscript recently immigrated from Cuba, a young girl whose parents abandoned her to join the fight, and a female soldier in an all-male battalion. I mean, you have people from every walk of life who are soldiers in the war, who are villages living in their town. You have priests, you have nurses. It's so well done. And I learned more about the Spanish Civil War than I ever knew. I loved the different perspectives that were in this book and the different ideas that they brought to the table about what this book is about, and their experience of the war. And ultimately, this book is about like how war changes and shapes us, and how going out into the world can be a very brutal experience and will challenge us to maintain our own humanity, and how some people are able to do that or not. And it's almost a coming of age story in some ways, where Isidro is trying to figure out if he can continue to be who he truly is. which he's also trying to figure out who he is in this book. But anyway, to wrap it up before my battery dies, this is a great book. I recommend it to anybody who likes historical fiction, wants to learn more about the Spanish Civil War, likes interconnected short stories. It's not a very long book. It moves along at a pretty good pace. It is brutal, I will warn you that, but I don't feel like it's depressing. And I feel like there's a great message in here. I feel like it's very timely given the state of the world right now. And it's just something that anyone could read and pick up and you'll be gripped. Even though it's easy to pick up and put down because there's so many different points of view and each chapter is like its own sort of unique story, there is the line of Isidro that goes from the beginning of the book all the way to the end that you'll just want to keep following and yeah, I think really enjoy. I will definitely be looking for this author to put out more works. And yeah, let me know if you pick it up and read it and what you think about it. But this was something that I just randomly found at my bookstore and picked up. It had to start with the letter W. I only had 2 choices and I'm glad I picked this book. So that's it for me. Let me know how your reading week has gone and what you've been reading and enjoying or finding meh or whatever it is. And yeah, that's it. I'll talk to you next time.